समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
So 2 weeks after the Russian invasion of Ukraine began, Ukraine is still holding out. This is not something that was widely expected across the world. General view was that such is Russian superiority, particularly of their armor, mechanized forces, air forces, missiles, that in 3, 4, 5 days, Ukraine will fold up. They will fold up, they'll call for a truce, a surrender, and accept Russia's terms, because definitely nobody had any expectation that NATO will move into it physically. That was not on the cards, that hasn't happened, and it's most unlikely to happen going ahead as well, because that has different consequences. But how has Ukraine been able to hold out? So I see some analysis from people saying, oh, it also took the Americans a month taking over Baghdad, the month of fighting. But the two situations are not comparable. Americans moved in a certain studied, planned way. They were not facing so much combat. And even if they did, that was like one-sided combat, one-sided punitive colonial expedition. They were not suffering casualties, definitely not at the scale that the Russians are suffering right now. Casualties, not just in terms of their tanks, armored vehicles, infantry combat vehicles, their missile systems, their radar systems, but also to their personnel. Now, the number of Russian dead, soldiers dead, may not be 12,000 or 13,000 or 14,000 that the Ukrainians are claiming. But it's definitely not about 1,000 that the Russians are admitting to now. It's a lot more. So this is a real combat. They are being stopped by real combat. Now, what is it that's worked? There will be a lot of analysis, and we've been sharing a lot of it with you also. There are limitations on the Russian side, limitations or the overestimation of the Russian military power has now been exposed, because generally across the world there was an estimation of Russian military power which was way too exaggerated. Look at Russian air power, for example. Even now they don't have complete control of Ukrainian skies. To give you an example, because again there was a lot of superiority on one side in the 1971 war. Within 24 hours of the war beginning, India had complete control of the skies in the eastern sector. Now, you might say that was 50 years back. This is an inapt comparison, but the fact is Russia is a deputy superpower of sorts. At least militarily, it's a superpower. It may be unidimensional superpower, but it's a superpower. It's not been able to make that impact. It's losing aircraft, it's losing tanks, its convoys are held up. And it may eventually win militarily, I don't know, because they just have so much firepower. But they will take a hell of a lot of damage, losses before that. And at this point, as we speak, they are not close to encircling Kyiv. Now, what are the things which have made a difference for the Ukrainians? Now, Ukrainians have a bunch of tanks. It's a fraction of the number of tanks that the Russians have. Ukrainians also have a bunch of fighter aircraft, just about 90 or so. These are not new aircraft. These are all Soviet-era aircraft. MiG-29s and three types of Sukhoi. Sukhoi 24, 25, 27. It is on the 27 frame, essentially, that ultimately Sukhoi 30 that the Indian Air Force flies, that was developed. It's in the same series. So these are earlier aircraft, Sukhoi 24, 25, 27, and also MiG-29s. But all of them together is about 90. Now, if the Ukrainian tank forces had gone and confronted the Russian tank forces, bit like the heroic medieval style, all right, I'll fight the enemy. The king goes in front on the lead horse, right, and gets cut down and everybody dies and you die a heroic death. And then you can sing whatever ballads you want to sing खूब बड़ी मर्दानी, वो तो झांसी वाली रानी थी, और etc etc. But the fact is that the smaller side, no matter how heroic it is, ends up losing very quickly and ends up losing a lot of lives. The answer to that was developed not just now, but more than 100 years ago, and that is guerrilla warfare. Now, how does one carry out guerrilla warfare in modern times, particularly in a country like Ukraine, which is flat, which is mostly green? These are vast agricultural lands. There is hardly any place to hide. Now, you do it in two ways, as the Ukrainians are now teaching the Russians and the rest of the world. One, turn your cities into battlefields. Your cities become porcupines. So when the Russians come into the cities, they get attacked from sides they are not expecting to be attacked from. So from one street, somebody can fire a javelin missile at a tank. The tank catches fire. Then tank crews have concerns about burning to death. So they start soldiers out of the armored personnel carriers, etc., to avoid burning to death in case the vehicle gets hit, start walking. If they walk, then people start raining Molotov cocktails from the top. That is one of the reasons that Russian soldiers are currently shy of entering the cities. They're trying to encircle the cities, and in frustration, they are now bombarding the cities. So that is one side of guerrilla warfare. That is, from the streets, you fire either shoulder-fired missiles or RPG-7s, simple old RPG-7s, grenade launchers. It can take out a tank at the right range. But the other dimension that they've added is the drones. And the drone they are using very effectively is the Turkish Bayraktar, right? They don't have many of them. They started with just about 20 of them. And chances are some may have been shot down by now, although we don't know for sure, because these are very slow moving, very large drones with 12-meter wingspan and very slow moving, very, very slow. I think some people on an empty highway, or some maybe not very smart people, not a very empty highway, can drive a car faster than these drones. But these drones are very well controlled. They are very deceptive. They have very good electronics. And what they are now doing is they are getting behind the Russian lines and surprising them. They are appearing somewhere where Russian massed forces, massed artillery bases, or massed tanks or convoys are there, or fuel trains are there, and then they go and let loose their missiles. Each drone carries up to 4 laser-guided missiles. And that in the middle of a convoy, or on a fuel train, or if it takes out a truck, or if it takes out a SAM battery, surface-to-air missile battery, or a radar battery. And Russians are having to carry these systems now because they need to take out the drones, not Ukrainian Air Force. Once again, just like the tanks, if the Ukrainian Air Force had gone headlong fighting a heroic battle with the Russians, they would have been cut down by now. Okay, maybe they would have scored, even if they scored 1-3 against the Russian Air Force, they would have still lost the war. So those resources are being conserved. On the other hand, Ukrainians are using the Bayraktar drone very well. So effectively, in fact, that they now even have a song about it. And I'll let you hear a few seconds of it, and I will use many videos today, of which you will just hear a few seconds as I talk, but I will share the full clips with you in description. So please go and check it out.
Поплавився їх інвентар. Bayraktar.
So they've now built a legend around Bayraktar. Now, Bayraktar is a Turkish drone, very cheap. It's just about $1 million to $2 million with the entire complement that it carries, right? So even if you lose one, if just about $1 million gone, or maybe $2 million gone, in a war, who cares about 8 crore worth of a drone lost or 15 crore worth of a drone lost, particularly when no human life is lost. That is how drones have completely changed the nature of warfare from manned aircraft. These drones, you can also push them in areas where commanders would be concerned about sending a manned aircraft because you don't want to lose a trained pilot. Also, pilots taken prisoner, pilot can lose his or her life. All those issues are there. In this case, the risk is just $1 million or $2 million. That means very little in the context of war. Now, these Bayraktar drones, as we talk now, looks like Ukraine has ordered another couple of dozen or maybe even more from the Turks. The reason they bought these from the Turks was that other countries that make the drones, including the US, Israel, etc., they were unwilling to send drones of this quality or this kind to the Ukrainians. Now, what is it that the drones do? These drones, as we noted earlier in our CTC on Armenian-Azerbaijani war, and later also when Houthis used similarly crude methods to attack UAE, we had talked about asymmetric warfare. So asymmetric warfare is when one side may be fantastic, great army, etc., but the other side has the capability of just going and delivering what is more than a flea bite in any place without risking a human life. And if you do it persistently enough, it gets the other side very demoralized, very dispirited, and very irritated. Can you imagine being killed by something you rarely see? It appears all of a sudden. Even if you shoot it down, your enemy hasn't lost a life and definitely hasn't lost anything of value. That is what, for a large, industrial-sized, regular army, is a very dispiriting thing. And that is how it becomes an asymmetric warfare. Now, these Bayraktar drones, where did they come from? Now, Mr. Bayraktar, the senior Mr. Bayraktar, after whom the drone is named, he was a Turkish engineer. His full name was Özdemir Bayraktar. He used to work for a company called Baker Makina or Baker Technologies. It's now called Baker Technologies. So he's the one who almost 20 years ago began work on these drones, and later his sons got involved. So his sons Selçuk and Haluk, they joined the company. Selçuk is the chief technology officer of the company. He incidentally also is a son-in-law of Erdogan. That helps, right? And that helps the company also. So this company has now become a kind of a global leader in cheap but very effective drones. Remember, even Pakistan has bought a bunch of these, and we have to keep that at the back of our minds in India when our people do their military planning going ahead. So they designed this Sasta Sundar Tikau drone that is cheap, that is effective, and also survivable. Right? These drones, these are very small, like American Reaper drones. See the picture. This is 1/7 the size of the Reaper drone, the American Reaper drone, and much cheaper in price. The Predator drones that India has been negotiating to buy from the US is several tens of times more expensive than these drones. And yet, these are quite effective even against a superpower, a military superpower army. I keep qualifying it. Russia is a superpower, but only a military superpower. That's why we say it's a unidimensional superpower. And even then, this is causing a problem. This is endurance of 30 hours, right? So it can keep roaming somewhere. You can keep looking for it. It's like a fly gets into your car, right? It goes all over and you keep trying to kill it and it goes someplace. Then as soon as you think it's gone and it's gone to sleep someplace and you close your eyes, it comes again next to your ear and does go again. And sometimes if it's a bee, can bite you also, right? So that is how these drones are working. If they are around, a conventional army, industrial scale conventional army does not get the time to rest. And that is the impact they've had on this battle. In the drone terminology, it's called a MALE, M-A-L-E, not as in male and female. MALE here stands for medium altitude, long endurance drone. Now you might say that, all right, it's the Russians. The Russian generals are still caught with the Second World War approach or the Cold War approach, which is massed armor, overwhelm the other side with massed armor assaults, and they haven't quite learned to deal with this. Think of the cutting-edge armed forces of the world, technologically and also brilliant in terms of generalship, as acknowledged to be so. That is the Israeli armed forces. Now see the predicament they are facing. Just yesterday, Israeli Defense Forces also released some footage, and you can see some of those tweets from Israeli Air Force that will run on my screen. You can see them, and one odd will run in a few seconds of video as well. These are tweets, And this is data where Israeli Air Force has told the world that not this year, but last year, on 15th of March 2021, their Air Force had shot down three drones carrying weapons coming in all the way from Iran or probably Iraq or maybe from some part of Syria. And these were flying over Jordanian territory to reach the Gaza Strip to drop these weapons for Hamas. Now, these were intercepted by the Israelis over Jordanian territory. They don't say Jordanian territory, they say over a friendly neighboring country's territory, which is translated very quickly as Jordan. Now, the interesting thing there is that two of these drones were shot down by F-35I aircraft. Now, this is the top of the line stealth fighter in the world. Super expensive. It's the first shoot downs by F-35s in their history. F-35s were designed to take down the world's most effective fighter aircraft or carry out strikes and attacks. In this case, an $80 to $100 million worth of F-35 is taking out maybe a $200,000 Iranian drone. These Iranian drones are called Shahad 197. It's the new version of Shahad. It goes to about 2,000 kilometers. That's why it could be coming from Iran or Iraq, also some parts of Iraq as well. 7-meter wingspan, has a 20-hour endurance, and can carry quite a bit of weight. Now, there were other versions earlier, Shahad 161, Shahad 181. This looks like something called Shahad 197. Look at this video. See this video. This is the Israeli F-35 pilot in communication with his base, gets the order to engage the target and takes down the target. Similarly, there's another video that's come out that is from 2018, Feb 2018, an Israeli Apache AH-64 helicopter, which can also do a little bit of air-to-air combat. It had taken down one more drone of the same kind. And once again, you can hear communication between the pilot and the base, orders to engage, and you can see the drone blown into smithereens. Now, just think about it. If missiles were used by these aircraft to take down these drones, you can be dead sure that the price tag on these missiles would be several times higher than the value of the drone. And that is why it becomes an asymmetric warfare. We've seen this earlier when Israel was attacked by these swarms of very cheap rockets coming in from Hamas, and the Iron Dome system needed to be employed. Now, once again, so much of that system was used, and so many of the rockets in that system were utilized, that the cost of fighting against these really cheap, for the price of nothing, rockets coming in from Hamas had become prohibitive for Israel as well. Once again, what is the answer? QED, asymmetric warfare. So this is the time now where all armed forces have to accept this reality. And you see, sometimes we will say, but I have 5,000 tanks, right? The way things are going, and I know that a lot of people don't like it when I say this, or when anybody says this, particularly conventional soldiers don't like it. Because for conventional soldiers and commanders, it's a very irritating and very demeaning thing to have to worry about one little nonsensical fly or bee or something that comes in from somewhere and stings, and where you can't even target a human being. You can't take a life, right? You cannot cost your enemy in terms of any lives. And this is what is changing the nature of modern warfare. Any army that does not understand it, that does not internalize it, and mind you, the answer to this is not the drone swarm you saw on beating of retreat. That was impressive and fun, but that doesn't work like that. See, if a country like Turkey, which is no great technology power, right, they can produce these, India should have been doing many of these things earlier. It's a good thing now that we are thinking about it. The Turks, they were denied Austrian engines, which initially powered these drones, and some other fire control and other systems, FLIR as it's called, that is forward-looking infrared for targeting by the Canadians. They developed their own, and they've now become global leaders in these effective, cheap drones. And those are the ones that are changing the nature of warfare. And see, why just Turkey? Even the Iranians have made such effective drones that they can fly 2,000 kilometers and threaten Israel. Threaten Israel by launching attacks there, but also threaten Israel by dropping arms and ammunition for pro-Iranian rebels there. Iranian drones, by the way, are supposed to have been inspired by the American original, that is RQ-170 Sentinel. But the fact is, Iranians have done it. Turks have done much better. We should be moving in that direction soon as possible. And also, in terms of our own force posture and force design, built around thousands of tanks and heavy artillery, etc., a lot of that has to be rethought now in modern warfare. Because in modern warfare, the idea of an industrial scale war with 1,000 tanks from this side, 1,000, or maybe 1,000 is too much, maybe an armored division plus a mechanized brigade from this side, a mechanized division from this side, and from the other. Because in the modern battlefield, what we might have conceptualized earlier in terms of industrial scale battles between two large armed forces with lots and lots of armored vehicles, cavalry as it's called, and artillery, that may not necessarily happen now because the battlefield has been redefined and changed. And how much it's been redefined, you've seen from both sides. You've seen how this becomes a strength for a much weaker army like Ukraine, and how much it becomes a headache for a much stronger army or much stronger defense machinery like Israel.